Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Today, our topic is, what is a high performer and what does that look like through the viewpoint of aligned living and everything that Nick and I are doing? And so, welcome. I never would have thought of myself as a high performer. I often think of high performers as people that are, so focused and so driven that their life becomes very kind of one-dimensional, and they are always focused on just the next level of self, and all the biohacking and really just living their life in such a hyper-focused way that it's all about, how do I show up bigger, better, stronger, and more effective. And it always felt to me like it had like this kind of like edge to it where people couldn't relax into themselves. Like it was just like this driven force. I think of like Gary Vee as kind of like the kind of the poster child for some of that type of stuff. And so, yeah, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it, Nick, but good morning. It's funny. We were just chatting for a while and going, what are we talking about today? And high performance came up, and particularly I'm actually getting ready to do a free masterclass next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And so there'll be information in the show notes about that free class as well. It's going to be focusing a lot on high performance. And so welcome, Nick. How you doing?
Good
Feel
morning.
like a high performer this morning?
Am I feeling high performance this morning? I'm working on
like
it.
A high performer.
I'm feeling, I'm sucking down my coffee. And it's such a wonderful topic. And there's so much, I think grind is synonymous with performance, culturally speaking.
Which I think that's why when I heard high performance at first, I was like, I don't think I need that. I don't think that's something that appeals to me. And we'll talk into like our definition of high performance.
Yeah.
But that piece of just continuing to push against it, you're right.
And I think there's a couple characteristics that are 100% true. I mean, I worked at a weird little online publishing company, and I do think we were high performance there. I think at any point in time, I think we were folks who worked there were arguably some of the best at what they did. I think so. Yeah. And I think that's an aspect of high performance.
Yeah.
I think having leadership that makes way for those people for them to be effective is another characteristic of that high performance.
Yeah. And most high performers tend to work for themselves too.
Yeah.
Maybe most isn't the right word, but many.
Yeah. And at some point they have to get people to help them, or else they can't build the thing they want to build. Right.
Yeah.
And so who do you want to have working for you? Yes, highly skilled people, and people, we talked about this term last time, self-generative people who can continue to look at a problem and wonder about the solutions versus going, problem, I guess I'll take off early today.
I'm stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that could be, hey, I need help, let's talk about it. Or it can be, I have an idea, I'm going to go do it. But that idea of move past it and try to get around it, and whatever that looks like, and the resilience that comes in and persistence that comes in, all those characteristics are at play. And one of the things that I think is completely 100% absent from the grind culture is the idea of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that exists.
No, it comes with crashes, and it comes with kind of out creating the process that created it. Meaning that, like, if you create through grind at a certain point, that's going to stop working for you. And if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to take it to a higher level, you're going to have to develop new skills. And I think that's where aligned living comes in often. Like I've had quite a few clients that consider themselves high performers that have gotten there through grind, that have gotten there through dogged determination. And they realize like that's not how I want to perform in a high way. That's not how I want to keep creating this. This isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And you know, to me, when I look at what's changed for me since I got the aligned living downloads and the continued downloads, and when I look at with clients and how they've changed, there's really what it comes down to is when we get really clear about who we are, we set a different bar for ourselves. And we go, okay, my alignment that we often talk about being above the threshold, that is where we're going to operate from. And we're not going to be interested in operating at a lower level. And so what we create from that place becomes something that we create from a place of high performance. And so our goals, even if we're not going, my goal is to get here, the outcomes that we are striving towards and what we're creating becomes very high level. And we recognize that I
That's
can't
true.
drift. I can't kind of settle into a lesser part of myself and achieve that. And so I always say with aligned living, like the place where our sense of self-control, our sense of, really just that place where we have to hold ourselves to it is, am I in alignment or am I not in alignment? And, once we're in alignment, the goal it becomes much more obvious, or at least the direction we're headed is much more obvious. And the level at which we need to show up is we can't compromise because we just realize that that's not where our alignment is. And so I always think of aligned living as like the high performance tool that doesn't look like a high performance tool, because the only time it takes the willpower, the only time it takes that determination is to be in this place of flow. And that's ultimately what high performers are looking for. But when you're grinding is the opposite of flow. And that piece of recognizing that in order to get things moving, we have to get things loose. We have to let energy move inside of ourselves and in the systems that we're creating from, and in whatever it is that we're creating. And if we're just holding on to it and forcing it forward with determination and force and just uh pushing harder and harder, it doesn't get to go into an aligned place. It gets to go into a place where maybe we're creating some magnificent thing that we often don't want by the time we're done with it, or aren't feeling fulfilled, or aren't sure what to do with it. And that to me is when high performers come in, the first thing we do is help them let go a little bit, drop into themselves, and let there be enough room for movement inside the whatever it is that they're creating for it to align with them,
Yeah.
or for them to start to have new ideas about what they want to create.
Yeah. It's funny. I woke up obnoxiously early today. Um, for me, at 5:30 to go for a surf
That's what high
with
performers do, Nick.
sometimes to go for a surf. There's like a founders surf here in San Diego,
Mhm,
and before everyone got in the water, there was a conversation of um there was an individual there who was working on an app and wasn't quite sure if they were getting the support they needed, and because there's competing
mhm,
priorities in this environment. And someone responded with like right now is the time to do it. And
mhm, mhm,
there's certainly that aspect, right? Like, got to seize it. You got to do the things you got to do. But there's a balance. I'm imagining as you were chatting, like there's this wheel of characteristics that
mhm,
um,
mhm.
that are at play at any point in time. And sometimes it's go fast, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
sit back and come up for air for a moment. You need to come up for
yeah,
air to
and
see,
percolate.
where are you? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. That piece of for a high performer of having the time when they know when it's time to hit the gas, having the time when they know when an idea maybe is pretty fantastic, but it hasn't really quite grounded yet, and so to leave it at 30,000 feet and not pull it into a creation yet, and
yeah,
when to step back and rejuvenate. And
yes,
it kind of reminds me. I used to teach when I was teaching middle school. I would teach the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, which is based on Covey's book of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And you know that's an interesting term, right? Highly effective people versus high performers. And high performers may just be like, look how fast I drove into that brick wall, right? versus highly effective. And yeah, it's funny. I hadn't thought about that book in quite a while, but that is what we're doing. When we set a bar that is, we're just not interested in compromising anything underneath that level of engaging, or people that want to engage with us underneath that level, it's just not interesting. And so what does it take for us to sustain that? It takes exactly like you said, like, it's not all push. It's not all about doing it today. It's about letting stuff percolate and form. It's about taking the time to step away. Like, most of my clarity comes when I'm out on a run, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
in a session with a client, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just flowing through, not when I'm sitting at my computer going, okay, and of course I can channel that way and type, but it's often the beginning of an idea, not the solidification of an idea.
Yeah, I forget. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't get any good ideas in front of the computer. I don't get any. Zero. Like it's a place where production happens. It's a place where emails. I'm not
Yep.
saying there's no good ideas in the email, right? Like they're thoughtful,
Mhm.
but I don't get any good ideas. I don't go, oh
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
goodness, this thing at a
Mhm.
big picture level in front of the computer. No, like I'll get excited because
Yeah.
of the piece of copy that I just reworked. Ah, that works.
Mhm.
No good ideas come from sitting in front of a machine. It doesn't happen. Not for
Yeah.
me.
And some people, that is where they channel, right? And I think we all channel, but for a lot of us, particularly if our job has been sitting in front of a computer grinding, and that is our association with sitting in front of a computer, like, that's not where the open channels flow. So, we'll get into that in the mastermind too, of how do we, or the master class, I'm sorry, of how do we find our own sweet spot, and what is our internal state that creates that? And it's so interesting because things like, we talked about the self-love activation from 2 weeks ago. Like, what does
Hmm.
self-love have to do with high performance? Well, a lot. And it's interesting. I think that for most people that start on a high performance path, self-love is like a distraction because they're so busy grinding and driving. But for high performers that have gotten themselves to a place where they feel unfulfilled, and they feel like, why isn't this doing this for me? And this chase for creation, or for showing up in a certain way, or being seen in a certain way, or achieving something, isn't doing it for them. You know, when clients come to us for aligned living, and they're high performers, and they're not coming for initially, usually, for a higher level of performance. They're coming because their higher level of performance isn't making them happy, and they don't know that it's going to create a higher level of performance, and they don't know that it's going to create a greater level of fulfillment and joy
Yeah.
and happiness and better relationships. But that's really what this is. I mean, I think of aligned living as is next level high performance, because it's not based on any things that you read out there or watch, or what people are sharing about high performance. It's not about, doing it, you know, in a way of achievement. It's doing it in a way of fullness and holisticness from a high consciousness. And it's funny. When I used to be a school teacher, we talked a lot about, holistic environments and holistic learning, where it was just natural and in the environment. But if the bar is not held high for ourselves, if we're not in a higher consciousness when we're learning holistically, we're developing bad habits. We're looking for shortcuts. We're doing all of these things that just don't work. And that's why people go, you know what, I can't just let myself be. I need to really get focused on my goals, and I need to really lay it out for me, and I need to stick to it, and I need to have that discipline. And I'm like, absolutely, if we're not in a higher consciousness and we're protecting ourselves from ourselves. But when we can stabilize in a higher consciousness, and we don't need to protect ourselves from our own bad habits anymore, because the bar for ourselves is already so high, now we can relax and let holistically come out of us what it is that we want to create, that's really going to create a sustainable place. And it often takes longer, but so does any masterpiece. And it's not just about cranking it out. It's about adjusting, clearing, becoming the
All
next
that.
level of ourselves when we realize that we're below the bar that we've set at different times. Um, yeah, Nick, you look like you have something to add, so go for it.
I've met more than one accidental millionaire, shall we call them.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
started doing a thing, and then all of a sudden they built a company, and they have $1 million of revenue.
yeah. Hopefully, it wasn't the first thing they tried, because then they're really screwed.
That could be a problem too. But what I've seen with these accidental millionaires is that they can be very unhappy.
Yeah,
And they can be
extremely.
very unhappy people because something happened to work out for them, and now they're
Hmm.
chasing it to make sure that it continues to do well, whatever that means for them.
Yeah.
There was no value or purpose tied to it.
They don't know how they
Um,
did it.
they don't know how they did it. They don't know what the bigger picture is. There's no sense of anything bigger than what they actually created. And so now they're
Yeah.
struggling in it, in this thing that they
Yep.
created that they feel stuck in.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's mind
And
blowing.
especially if it's
It's
a,
mind
like I was
blowing to
saying,
see
if it's
that.
their first swing at bat, if it's the first thing they go after, it's almost kind of like the same thing I've seen with clients who were given a trust fund and how debilitating that is because they don't trust themselves because, either they didn't create it themselves or they don't know how they created it because it just happened and they got lucky. And,
Yes.
there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that do 100 businesses and one they knock out of the park. And if it happens to be the first one or two or three that at bats, so to speak, then it just becomes a norm and it's scares the shit out of them. But those who have,
Yeah.
it's their 100th at bat, then they hit it out. They're like, oh my God, I've worked so hard to get here. I really figured out what works for me, what doesn't work for me, what my pitfalls are, how when I hold myself to a higher standard and when I don't. And I know myself. And so now I can trust it and I know I can recreate it. And I know that like it just has a different meaning. And it's such an interesting, like, self-trust is such a huge component of this and understanding of
That's
stuff.
true.
and
Yeah.
and when we set that bar high, like, we're not looking at just creating an outcome, we're looking at creating something that holistically works in our life. And we don't know what holistically works in our life unless we're really in alignment, because what we think holistically works is the things that makes our deficits feel better, the things that make our fears quenched. And that if we can't work through those ourselves, like, all we're doing is just piecing shit together to feel okay in the moment and then terrifying ourselves that it's going to fall apart. Or just feeling so stuck and unfulfilled because now we have to do this daily grind that holds it all together so that we're okay. And that is a trap that so many high performers get in.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Or they've built 10
Um,
things that have done really successful and then fallen apart. And so they're so afraid of building something because they don't know how to sustain it and they don't know how to hold it in their lives.
yeah. Which when you describe that behavior and then you tack on the phrase high performers, it's not that. It looks
Yeah.
like it culturally. It looks like that. It's a
Hmm.
lot of what
Hmm.
people talk about, but it's not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that to me is the biggest, like, if we look at this, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel like you trust your life? Do you feel, and safe's a kind of a tricky word because I'm not talking about the safety of, like, there's nothing dynamic happening in my life that I need to adjust to, but the idea, do you feel like you can handle what's showing up in your life and handle the obstacles that show up, because they always do. And that piece do you really, it's self-trust and self-love and
Uh-huh.
fulfillment. And that's what we're going to be talking about in that masterclass is how do we establish a baseline inside of ourselves that creates those experiences, and then we create from inside that experience. And we become high performers inside the experience of feeling like we trust ourselves, feeling the love for ourselves and the desire for our lives to be amazing, and the desire to share it with others.
Uh-huh.
And when that is the foundation of how we operate, rather than the I'm going to go knock this out of the park and I'm going to go kill it, like, yeah, those become side effects. But if those are the goal, like, we're just trading in all the connective tissue, we're trading in all the things that make life worth living in order to get there. And in that pursuit of it, it may feel like we're deeply in purpose, and it may feel like we're life is right on track. But in the achievement of it, in the receiving of the victory, like, becomes the letdown, as opposed
Yeah.
to the stabilization and the expansion and the next level. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we'll spend time with on next Thursday. It'll be fun to take people through this. And I love looking at a line living through that lens, right? Because, unbeknownst to myself, that's really been what I've been pursuing. Like, I've always
Mm.
wanted to create something that made a difference and create something that felt successful. But it was a lot longer process because it had to match me. I wasn't interested in chasing something for the sake of chasing something, winning for the sake of winning, having a goal for the sake of achievement, having a business that didn't light me up just to
Yeah.
make money or to achieve something or to prove something. And so it makes for a longer process,
Totally.
but it doesn't at the same time, because once we have our alignment, like, my long process was finding my alignment.
Yeah.
And once we
Yeah.
have our alignment, then everything can accelerate at a massive pace.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Patagonia. They have such a wonderful story, and I may not
Hmm.
have all the bits and pieces, but the gist of it is they were climbers. They sold
Hmm. Hmm.
they made high quality goods for climbing
Hmm.
because they wanted to go climbing. And that was it. That's what
Yeah.
they wanted to do. And then people start asking for them to make gear for them.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now they're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they were never business people, and they created
Yeah.
a very well constructed business.
Hmm.
And if you were to take a look at how do they think about their business, they're in business
Hmm.
to save the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
They happen to sell climbing gear. They happen to
Hmm.
sell all the things you see in their stores. But when it comes
Yeah.
down
And they
to
want the
it,
things they love sustained.
yes. And when it comes down to it, the reason they get up in the morning is not because climbing gear. It's because
Hmm.
save the planet. There's a different
Yeah. Yeah.
motivation behind it.
Preserve the wild.
And that can make the reason why you get up to push the pixels, to send the emails, to whatever those skills are,
Hmm. Hmm.
at some point they don't matter. What matters is why are you doing those things?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
It's a great story. There's a, I think it's called Let My People Surf,
Hmm.
if someone's interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a documentary.
It's it's a book. I mean, is there a
Okay.
documentary? I'm not quite. Is there a
I don't know. I was just asking. I wasn't sure if what you were talking about was a book or a documentary. Yeah.
certainly a book?
And
There could be.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that, like, success without purpose, the victory is like kind of the end of the fun, really. And then we're left figuring out, how do I maintain this? How do I keep something going rather than, this lights me up. And it reminds me every day to set the bar so high for myself, not unachievably high, but in a place where I'm not creating things I don't want. And that's funny. That really rang for me, just as I said that. The idea of the bar that we're setting for ourselves is not to hold ourselves to some high standard. It's or to have some about, I mean, it is about a relationship with ourselves, but ultimately it's about when we hold ourselves to the high standard, what we are creating is something that we want once we have it. And when we let ourselves dip and chase things that are below the bar, below our out of our alignment, we're creating things that once we have them, we aren't going to want them. They're not going to be fulfilling. They're going to be a burden, and they're not going to be something that's sustainable in any kind of interesting way and co-sustainable with our alignment. Like, there's a lot of things we can create that can be success and we can sustain them, but we can't sustain our alignment at the same time if we're trying to sustain something that we've created just as a sense of accomplishment and high performance and grind and a success, so to speak.
Yeah. I think what you said there, we're creating something that when we get it, we want it, is terribly important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think we can all look back on the things we've created that we achieved and we got, and then we're like, what do I do with it now? Like, the pursuit
So
was
what?
the fun part.
So what? Right. Yeah. I got it.
Yeah,
So what?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a hard realization. But again, like we talked about last week, if we shift into our alignment, maybe it becomes interesting in a different way. And I've had quite a few
Yes.
clients, who, when they've started working with me, and they nurtured some entrepreneurial company and created this huge success. What happened within a few months of work with me? They hired a CEO and they handed it over, and they let that CEO take it to another level. And maybe they sold it, or maybe they were on the board, but they realized they had to disengage from inside the grind because that wasn't working for them. But they could still get a
Yeah.
massive paycheck from it. They
Yeah.
could let somebody else take over their baby who was interested in that, somebody who got a great you know internal satisfaction out of running a company, that
Yeah.
and they didn't want to be the entrepreneur, they wanted to be the CEO. And those people
Yeah.
are out there. And like, what a freeing piece. And then it's funny, like, one of those people I'm thinking of, like, they ended up becoming a coach and going, now I get to work with people and help them build what's in alignment for them. And I don't want to run this thing that I built from an old part of me that doesn't even resonate with anymore. And the reason that I built it was I was solving some internal conflict inside of myself that's now resolved. And so the whole purpose of it feels irrelevant to me. For me, it has a purpose in the world, but I don't need to be engaging with it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome. So yeah, so join us. Let's talk about high performance and what it looks like from an aligned living perspective, and how you can start to put that into action in your life next Thursday. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, and set that bar high. Awesome. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.